Imagine sleeping in a tent in the middle of the icy wilderness. The outdoor temperature is almost 30 degrees. The mountain is deserted and the wind is yelling. All of a sudden, you are so terrified that you cut your way out of the tent from the inside. Your footwear are not grabbed. You don't reach for your jacket, you simply dash into the snow, barefoot and into the darkness. The next morning, you're dead. Now picture 8 of your buddies suffering the same fate. This isn't a scary film. This actually occurred. The Dyatlov Pass event, which occurred in 1959, involved the unexplained deaths of 9 seasoned hikers. And we're still not really sure why, over 60 years later. It was late January 1959. A group of young engineering students from the Soviet Union set out on a challenging ski trek across the remote Ural Mountains. Their leader was 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov. He was smart, disciplined, and highly respected. The group was experienced in winter survival. This was not reckless adventure. This was a certified expedition meant to earn them advanced hiking credentials. There were 10 members at first, but one turned back early due to illness. That decision saved his life. The remaining 9 continued deeper into the wilderness. Their destination was a mountain called Kolat-Syakhl. In the language of the local Mansi people, the name roughly translates to Mountain of the Dead. At the time, it sounded dramatic. In hindsight, it feels prophetic. On February 1st, the group arrived at the slope of Kolat-Syakhl. The weather conditions were terrible. Strong winds, snow is blowing about. Visibility was low. Rather than relocate to a more protective forest area nearby, they chose to camp straight on the exposed mountainside. Some experts believe they did this purposefully as a training exercise. They set up their enormous canvas tent on the slope and settled in for the night. They wrote in their journals. They took photographs. They laughed. Nothing in their final entries indicates dread. Then, sometime during the night, something occurred. Something powerful enough to make 9 experienced hikers worry at the same moment. When the group failed to return on time, search teams were formed. Days progressed into weeks. On February 26th, rescuers discovered the encampment. The tent remained partially standing, but it was slashed open from the inside. Inside the tent, there were boots, heavy coats, food, cameras, and personal items. Everything they would require to endure the cold. The footprints led away from the tent. Clear footprints. Some are barefoot, some are wearing only socks. There are no indicators of conflict with another group. There are no evidence of an external attack. The pathways led roughly a mile downhill to the forest's edge. Rescuers discovered the first 2 bodies below a huge cedar tree. They were only dressed in underpants. Their hands were scorched, indicating that they attempted to climb the tree or fuel a tiny fire beneath it. The fire had gone out. 3 more bodies were recovered between the tree and the tent over the course of the following days. This includes Dyatlov himself. They appeared to be trying to return to the tent, but collapsed due to hypothermia. At the time, investigators suspected that the mystery was caused by exposure to intense cold. But then the remaining 4 bodies were discovered. Everything changed. Months later, as the snow began to thaw, the last 4 hikers were recovered in a gully, buried under several feet of snow. These hikers were outfitted better. Some were even dressed in garments taken from the bodies of the first victims. A desperate act of survival. However, their injuries were terrible. 1 person suffered a cracked skull. 2 people suffered major chest injuries. Broken ribs were so severe that physicians equated the force to a car accident. Nonetheless, there were virtually no outward wounds. It seemed as if something had crushed them internally, but left no visible external wounds. 1 individual was missing her tongue and some of the soft tissue around her mouth. Some investigators then speculated that animals may have caused the damage after they died. Even worse, traces of radiation were discovered on specific articles of clothes. The enigma was no longer limited to mere hypothermia. The Soviet investigators concluded the matter with an ambiguous remark. The hikers died from a compelling natural force. There are no further details. There's no clear explanation. Many records remained classified for years, fueling mistrust. Rumors spread. Military experiments. Weapons testing is carried out in secret. Parachute mines explode in the air. There were reports of bright orange lights in the sky about the same time. In 2020, Russian officials renewed the investigation, concluding that the panic was most likely caused by a tiny slab avalanche. According to this idea, a delayed snowslide may have partially collapsed the tent, forcing the group to cut their way out for fear of being buried alive. However, detractors say that the slope angle was rather shallow. The tent wasn't substantially submerged, and the unique injuries continue to be disputed. Some researchers presented an alternative theory: infrasound. Under certain wind conditions, the mountain's form may produce low-frequency sound waves. These are not often consciously heard, but they can produce anxiety, nausea, and abrupt panic attacks. Imagine being half asleep in chilly darkness when you are suddenly overcome by an unexplained surge of horror. Would you run? Maybe, but would 9 trained hikers abandon all at once? That question lingers. Today, the location is officially known as Dyatlov Pass in honor of the group's leader. 9 young people, ambitious, educated, prepared, gone in one night. There is no verified attack. There are no confirmed avalanche burials. There is no definitive solution. The mountain remains calm. Snow still falls on the same slope. The wind still screams through the pass. And somewhere in that frozen silence is a moment in time that we can never truly relive. What drove them out of their tent? Nature? Human error? Or is there anything we still can't explain? More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass tragedy is still one of the most terrifying unsolved mysteries in modern history. Perhaps that is why it is so strong. Not only how they died, however, we still do not know why.